For centuries, audiences have watched The Taming of the Shrew and felt a profound sense of discomfort. The traditional reading of the text is highly straightforward. A bold man systematically breaks the spirit of a fiercely independent woman until she submits. Before a single line of the romance is spoken, the text presents a completely different scenario. A nobleman finds a drunken tinker named Christopher Sly, passed out in the mud, and decides to play an elaborate prank on him. Christopher Sly is a minor character used entirely for this framing device. He wakes up dressed in fine clothes and is told he is actually a wealthy lord who has been suffering from amnesia. To celebrate his supposed recovery, a troupe of traveling actors puts on a private performance just for him. That performance is the story of Katharina and Petruchio. Shakespeare explicitly constructs the core narrative as an illusion, a literal trick played on a gullible man. Yet, for 400 years, viewers have analyzed the cruelty of the inner story as if it were the absolute, objective reality. The inner play transports us to Padua. Padua is a bustling city in northern Italy, historically known for its university and wealthy merchants. Here, a rich father has 2 daughters. Society heavily demands the younger, polite Bianca, while completely rejecting her sharp-tongued older sister, Katharina. Into this dynamic walks Petruchio. Petruchio is a highly opportunistic gentleman from Verona seeking to marry into wealth. When he hears about Katharina's infamous hostility, he doesn't see a roadblock. He sees it as a highly profitable acquisition. The environment is highly transactional, less like a romantic backdrop and more like a financial exchange, creating an ideal ecosystem for manipulation and deception. To win the highly prized Bianca, her suitors immediately resort to deception. Lucentio, a wealthy young student who has recently arrived in the city, fakes his identity. He poses as a humble Latin tutor to bypass her father's rules and gain private access to her. To maintain this ruse, Lucentio's servant dresses up and assumes his master's identity in public. This swap completely subverts the rigid social hierarchy of the 16th century, blurring the lines of class and status. Before the main plot even accelerates, the text establishes a distinct rule for this universe. Identity is not fixed. It is a highly flexible tool used to manipulate people and secure power. While the secondary characters hide behind fake names and borrowed clothes, Petruchio takes a different approach. His weapon of choice is language. During his first encounter with Katharina, she launches a barrage of vicious insults. Instead of matching her anger, Petruchio aggressively rebrands her words. He insists her fury is actually sweetness, and her physical strikes are signs of deep affection. He extends this distortion to their wedding day. He arrives late, dressed in absurd, mismatched clothing, and behaves like a maniac at the altar, swearing and striking the priest to intentionally disrupt the social expectations of the ceremony. He drags her to his isolated estate and begins a campaign of psychological attrition. He deprives her of sleep and food, claiming the bed and the meals are simply not good enough for someone he loves so much. He even forces her to agree with blatant falsehoods, demanding she call the midday sun the moon. He is creating a confined arena where facts no longer matter. By controlling the vocabulary of their relationship, he dictates reality itself. This animated diagram charts the shift in their dynamic. On one side, we see Petruchio's absurd, changing inputs, and on the other, Katharina's sudden, perfectly synchronized agreements. She stops fighting his contradictions and begins eagerly endorsing them. By mirroring his exact phrasing, she neutralizes his primary weapon. When she enthusiastically agrees that a wrinkled old man is a blooming young virgin because Petruchio says so, she exposes the absurdity of his rules while flawlessly complying with them. She adopts the very tactics used by everyone else in Padua. By participating in the illusion, she secures her own comfort and safety, mastering the system from the inside. The narrative converges at a final banquet. The newly married men sit around a table and place a financial wager on a highly specific metric: whose wife will prove the most obedient when summoned. Lucentio calls for his seemingly perfectly compliant bride Bianca, but she refuses to appear. When Petruchio sends for Katharina, she arrives instantly. She then delivers a massive 44-line monologue. She publicly lectures the other women on the absolute necessity of total wifely submission, humility, and physical obedience to their husbands. In an ecosystem entirely governed by disguise, fake tutors, and weaponized vocabulary, we have to look closely at this moment. We have watched her systematically learn to wield language to manipulate her circumstances. It becomes difficult to accept the speech as authentic truth, rather than a calculated performance. Which brings us back to the mud-covered man from the very first scene. Christopher Sly has been sitting on the margins, watching this exact story unfold. But in the standard folio text, the prank on Sly is never resolved. The earliest published collection of Shakespeare's plays ends with Katharina's speech, and the playwright never returns to the framing device. The audience is left trapped inside the illusion. The failure to close the outer loop reinforces the idea that human reality is easily overridden by those who control the narrative. Katharina recognized the mechanics of her world and adapted to them. In a society where power dictates truth, she simply delivered the most convincing performance of them all.